year, from a world point of view, is going to be worse than this year. Well, if it keeps on going, at some point, it's going to end. It just can't go on. But for the people of God, we have been told from the book of Revelation how it's going to end. The consummation of this world as we know this world. The date of the writing, around AD 95. No one can be for sure, obviously, but that's a close estimate. And there's no problem with that. Now, the background, let's look at it. The Revelation, which is the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, the concluding book of the Scriptures, unfold the great events bringing history to a consummation, including the revelation of Jesus Christ at his second advent, his second coming. The word revelation used as the title of the book is from the late Latin revelatio, which means, as does the Greek, apocalypsis, from which we get the English word apocalypse. Apocalypse, or the unveiling. Apocalypse is the Greek word derivative. And it discloses of that which was previously hidden or unknown. So we know where we get the title. The unveiling. They don't use the word unveiling, but that's what it is, the unveiling. The theme of Revelation. These are things that we need to know before we go into the book. In the unfolding of this central theme, Jesus Christ, and that's the central figure in the book. Jesus Christ, not John, not the Antichrist, not the false prophet. Jesus Christ is revealed in glory, in a glorious way, in contrast with his presentation in the four Gospels and in his humiliation. Meaning, how did he come? He came being born in a delivery stall, placed in a manger, wrapped up in swaddling clothes. His earthly dad and mom were poor people. No status, no influence. But at the age of 30, he began his ministry. And everywhere he went, he was misunderstood. Everywhere he went, he was castigated. Everywhere he went, he was maligned. Except for those that would believe on him and be baptized. And finally, he was humiliated with the cross and died. Now we know the rest of the story. Now in the book of Revelation, that is not about the humiliated Christ. It is about the victorious Christ. He was a lamb. He's coming back as a lion. He was sacrificed. He's coming back to devour and reign supreme. So the book of Revelation gives us the other side of Christ that we don't find in the Gospels, generally speaking. In Revelation, Christ is seen in relationship to time as he who was and who is to come. Interesting. Who was he? And what will he be like when he comes back? We know that he existed before he was born, and he's alive today and forevermore. Amen. So in Revelation, Christ is seen in relationship to time as he who was and who is to come. He is related to the church. This is what we'll find out. He is related to the church. Chapter 1, verse 9. Chapter 3, verse 22. He is related to the tribulation. Chapter 4, verse 1 through chapter 19, verse 21. He is related to the millennial kingdom. Chapter 20, verses 1 through 10. He is related to the eternal state we call eternity. Chapter 20, verse 11 to chapter 22, verse 21. Christ is presented in this book as the ruler of the kings of the earth. Chapter 1, verse 5. Christ is presented in this book as the bridegroom and head of the church. Chapter 2, verses 1 through chapter 3, verses 22, and chapter 19, verses 7 through 9. The bridegroom and the head of the church. You see, so far, nothing about weakness, nothing about defeat, nothing about being misunderstood. He stands tall, he walks straight, and he's in charge of everything. And one day every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of the Father. But then why is it that the majority of people in America are not disciples of Him? Now, something happened this past week that saddened me but also thrilled me, and that's the death of Billy Graham. It saddened me just simply to think that he's gone. But it thrills me to know what he did. And now the world is going to hear his message all over again by way of a funeral. And that makes me so happy. I got to be in a chapel service and hear him preach in about 1972 in Fort Worth at the Baptist Seminary. So it was a chapel that would seat, I think, about 300. And there he stood. I remember this. He said in that meeting where I heard him speak, I heard him speak also at the Texas Stadium when he did his crusade. His first crusade was at the old Texas Stadium in Dallas. It's been torn down now. My wife and I went there 2 nights on the crusade. But anyway,
At the chapel.
pardon me?
At the chapel. You said something that you said.
At the chapel. He said, sometimes what I have to say in particular meetings are not really that profound because the gospel is not profound. It's simple. A child can get it. But he said, sometimes I speak in gatherings and what I have to say, which is always the gospel, is not necessarily that profound for the thinkers and all like that if he goes to Harvard or whatever. So he said, I take my notes and I fold them like this, and he showed how he did it. And he said, I hold it up. And he said, when I hold up a piece of paper, somehow it makes them think that I'm really saying something really profound. So if I hold this up today sometime, you'll see what I'm doing. That's a true story. I saw it. Anyway, but Billy Graham preached to more people than anyone in the world at any time in the world. That's amazing, isn't it? And many people were introduced to Christ and came to know Christ through his ministry. And he said all he wants to hear when he goes to heaven is to hear Jesus say, well done. Amazing. So, let's go back to this piece of paper. Christ is presented in this book as the ruler of the kings of the earth, the bridegroom and the head of the church, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. That's powerful, isn't it? The Lion of the tribe of Judah. Chapter 5, verse 5. The Lamb that was slain. Chapter 5, verse 6 and verse 11, etc. The High Priest. Chapter 8, verses 3 through 6. And the King of the Judge. And the Judge. Chapters 19 through 11 through 20, verse 15. This book is a record of what the Apostle John saw and heard. But it's not about John, it's about Christ. And as we see Christ, we come to understand the end of time. As we see Christ in the book of Revelation. Constant use in this book is made of symbols, and that's where people get in trouble. Because I think it means this, and you think it means that. And so we have to sort of be flexible. But there is constant use of symbols in the book of Revelation. It does make it controversial. Let me give you, I brought this. You heard of David, have you heard of David Jeremiah? David Jeremiah. Here are some of the symbols that are found. That's enough to let you know there's going to be debate. As if that is not enough, I brought I'm just doing this at random. Symbols. That's not symbol there. Symbols. Well, let me just do it this way. Here we go. Look at the symbols that are there. As if that is not enough, one more. This I have on a DVD. We don't do that here. Of all of the stuff that's found in this book is right here as well. That can be put on the screen. What is it? Yeah.